Hello and welcome back. This one took a while. This one took a hot minute. Just feeling so heavy. Yeah, as you can tell by the title of this video, this is just really like a bit of a bit by bit of like everything that's happened in my life, in the world, my feelings. My vibration has been pretty heavy. I started off like really excited, obviously, to start this channel, as I still am. I'm still really excited about that. I just didn't realize like how much had happened in the year. Like, we're coming to 2023 really soon. Like, December is here, and I have needed to sort of like reflect on the whole year thus far. I kind of feel like this year has been like a really sped up year. Like, everything has happened, and like either I've had to like disassociate from like majority of it, or I've just had to kind of like, again, bits and pieces just along the way. I can't not acknowledge like the elephant in the room, which is COVID-19. I feel like for everyone in some way, shape or form has been traumatized by COVID, and I'm not using that word lightly. Like, it has been incredibly destructive, like just totally wow. And it's also been incredibly depressing, as much as like the world tries to make us feel like, oh yeah, you know, we're post-COVID and whatever, but it's like, we're not post-COVID. Like, we're just in a different version of reality that actually still has to deal with COVID. So COVID has been incredibly heavy. I got COVID literally beginning of the year, like January, which was really crap. I have asthma, so having asthma was like a really big concern for me getting the virus, because I didn't know how my lungs were going to deal with it. For me personally, it felt like getting the flu, but like times 10. Like, it felt so much worse. The body aches, the shivers, all that kind of stuff. And my lungs, like the inflammation was just like so much worse. And like, I just remember feeling like, holy crap. I know here in Australia, like particularly in Victoria, Melbourne, it was really hectic. Like, the lockdowns were really intense, you know. And I think the hardest part about that was like getting hopeful about coming out, and then things not going the way like we wanted things to go, and then going back in. I think the going back in really like slap me about. That's the thing. Like, I think we're all just still like reeling from it, and I think we're going to continue to. And I think that's sort of like an undercurrent like feeling though, as we move through, you know, the rest of the year and like the year coming, that like we have a heaviness, we have a burden. Some of us have lost people, some of us like are still like having symptoms from COVID. So yeah, I'm just holding space for the fact that like the past 3 years has been incredibly heavy. Yeah, I think I mentioned in my like intro video that like I have tinnitus in my ears. I have tinnitus. It's been a bit of a weird one, because I had like a really big operation at the beginning of the year, sort of like April. I like, for the longest time, like for as long as I could remember, have always had an underbite. So my bottom jaw has always been longer than my top jaw, which meant that like my bite was always like uneven and really uncomfortable, and I never really like, yeah, enjoyed that. Also, like aesthetically, it was just really crap to have, because I just didn't like the way I looked. So I had the surgery, and that was massive. It still pretty is massive. I'm still sort of wrapping my head around it. I actually had an appointment today with my orthodontist, and I like finally got my elastics off. But we're sort of at that like end bit where we have to kind of like, you know, tighten up the spaces so I can like make sure that the gaps will be filled properly with like the right prosthetic teeth. That's been really interesting, because I kind of like slowly developed it after the surgery. I wouldn't say that it was like necessarily like a direct thing from the surgery itself, but because the jaws are like in a new position and everything, they kind of like need to readjust, and sometimes like the joints kind of can be a little bit disruptive to like the ears, and I think that like that's sort of what's happened. And you know, I've had it for a couple months now, but I feel hopeful because I know that from what I can hear, it's kind of slowly dissipating. So I'm like kind of fingers crossing it. It's definitely not a result of like hearing damage or anything like that. I've done hearing tests. I've gone to like 2 ENTs, like specialists, and they're like, your hearing is like kind of normal. And by kind of normal, I mean within like the normal frequency of like being able to hear, especially for like my age. That's been that, and I've just been managing it. And yeah, that's been a really big thing for me. Again, so kind of recovering from like a really massive surgery whilst also having to like be mindful of my external environment and yeah, COVID-19. And I guess talking about like external environment, I think the other thing that's been really heavy on me is like my environmental like well-being. I don't feel really optimistic about like the outlook of where our relationship with our environment is going, and how, you know, our governments are trying to really like look after our, not even like our future, like, you know, time and stuff, like not even the future, like I'm talking about like right now I feel so weird. Like literally we had spring, like we just came out of spring and it did not feel like spring. Like we literally had rain and like gloomy weather. And you know what, I keep telling people, I'm like, spring is such an important part of the cycle. Spring always sort of kind of like transitions you into warmer weather, into summer. I kind of feel sad that like there's all this stuff that, you know, I'm not able to grasp, but yet, you know, I kind of just have to deal with, because, you know, there's just not a lot of care being put into like our environment, which kind of sucks. But I take that in and try to remember that trying to, you know, have control of everything isn't possible. So I do what I can with what I have, and I'm not shying away from where we're at and where we could potentially be going. So yeah, I'm just like, this doesn't feel great. Like there's so much change happening everywhere, and like not just like, you know, physically, you know, I think there's so much change happening in my like relationships, like with friendships and like family dynamics. Like there's been so much shedding that's been happening, and I know that like, you know, it's good, it's healthy, it's growth, but I think that the part that like I always sort of like neglect to hold room for is the fact that with change, with growth, there comes like this kind of like pocket in between where you don't realize that you're like grieving. Like there's this chunk of you that's being let go of. There are these friends that, you know, you've loved and that you've, you know, held on to, that you let go of, and you have to deal with that space, and that is sad sometimes. But you know, there's boundaries now, and you have to really put in that self-love to be able to be like, hey, this is the environment I want to create. This is the love that I want to receive, because that's what I want for me. And so having to like reorientate relationships with family has been incredibly huge. And I think there's been a huge burden of like, again, that emptiness, and having to allow myself to feel the sadness of, you know, not having relationships the way that they were with people that I've loved and thought that would always sort of look like and be like, yeah, that's grief, you know, losing things to gain other things, which are great things, but still really heavy and takes time to process, really takes time to process. On a more sort of lighter note, change is also really, really rewarding. And I think that one of the things that, you know, has come through is, you know, my birth cycle. You know, I turned 26 last month, and shit, actually not even last month, in October. See, this is what I mean, like the times. I love October, first of all. I love October. October is the best. I even like went to like my like first like jazz gig, which is pretty cool because I love music. I love jazz, but I wanted to do something special, so I went to see like this like jazz gig with like a friend of mine, cool friend of mine, and it was beautiful. I just tried to be present and just enjoy the fact that I was alive and shit, like just be grateful. The other really positive thing is that I became an auntie. But you know what? It's like, it's not like it's a new thing for me. Like, I've been an auntie for a while. I have lots of cousins that have children. So it's not like that relationship for me is like, oh. But there is a different feeling of welcoming, you know, a life force, a human being into the physical who belongs to your sister. Yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm having to go with like the flow of the fact that things feel heavier, things take more time, you know. I might be late to a couple of things here and there, like maybe like, you know, wink wink, uploading this video, which I was technically supposed to do like 2 weeks ago. But that's the thing. I think I want to be, you know, reminding myself of like what I'm actually experiencing. I do myself a disservice, you know, I don't meet myself where I'm at when I am rushing the energies. You know, that's the whole principle of going at your own flow. Yeah, a lot, so much in so little time. Actually, speaking of that, I have my first like house inspection. It's weird because I haven't gone to, actually that's not true. I went to a house inspection probably like 2 years ago. I really felt the itch to move out because, you know, there's so many perks of staying at home with your fam, and I love that. I love being with them to a degree. Like, I think most people would like understand, you know. My mum has been incredible. She's been so giving, so loving, but you get to a point as a young adult / adult where you just want to spread your wings again and fly. I'm just ready. I just want to look for something that feels right and just go for it. So, you know, that's something that could be happening really soon. I could be leaving the nest really soon, which would be really cool. I'm actually looking forward to it. But yeah, just letting yourself roll with the motions, I guess. You know, change is like literally life. And I always like look for change. I look for growth. I want those things to happen. I just think that, you know, I don't allow myself to feel all of the emotion. I'm really glad to be alive, and yeah, really thankful to be doing this. So yeah, thank you for, you know, coming through. Thanks for clicking. Hope I see you again. Thank you. Bye.